Imagine, if you will, walking through the hallowed halls of a grand British museum. The air thick with history, ancient wonders preserved for millennia. But what if those ancient wonders held a secret, a volatile energy, capable of a startling, terrifying event? What if, amongst the hushed reverence, thousands of mummies didn't just crumble to dust, but spontaneously exploded? It sounds like the stuff of Gothic horror, a sensational tale whispered through the ages. But did it really happen? And if so, why would these revered relics of ancient Egypt meet such a dramatic, shattering end within the very institutions sworn to protect them? The notion of mummies violently rupturing or exploding in museums isn't just a modern urban legend. It's a sensationalized echo from a bygone era, often circulating in historical anecdotes and Victorian-era folklore. While no documented, literal detonation akin to an incendiary device ever occurred, records and eyewitness accounts do speak of dramatic incidents: bandages bursting, ancient flesh tearing, sarcophagi cracking under unseen pressure. These were events startling enough to fuel whispers, leading to a much more dramatic retelling over time. But to understand these accounts, we must first journey back to when these ancient bodies first arrived. The late 18th and 19th centuries witnessed an unprecedented craze across Europe: Egyptomania. Napoleon's campaigns ignited a fervent interest in ancient Egypt, transforming it from a distant land into a treasure trove. British explorers, archaeologists, and even amateur adventurers flocked to the Nile, driven by curiosity, scientific ambition, and often sheer greed. Coffins, sarcophagi, and countless mummified remains were unearthed with astonishing regularity. These priceless relics were then shipped by the thousands across oceans, destined for private collections and, ultimately, the burgeoning public museums of Britain. Upon arrival, these ancient dead weren't always treated with the reverence we afford them today. The Victorian public was fascinated by death, the exotic, and the macabre. Mummy unrolling parties became a bizarre, fashionable form of entertainment, where guests would gather to watch a surgeon or archaeologist meticulously unwrap a centuries-old corpse. Even in museums, mummies were often displayed in conditions that would horrify modern conservators: unwrapped, exposed to the elements, and handled with a shocking lack of care. This casual, often invasive, approach to ancient remains would prove to have dire consequences for their long-term stability. To understand their eventual fate, we must first appreciate the extraordinary science of mummification. The ancient Egyptians perfected a complex process designed for eternal preservation. Evisceration, dehydration using natron salt, anointing with oils and resins, and meticulous wrapping in hundreds of layers of linen bandages, all aimed to halt decomposition. The goal was to create a durable vessel for the Ka and Ba, the spirit and soul, ensuring passage into the afterlife. For millennia, many of these mummies remained astonishingly intact, a testament to this ancient, sophisticated craft. But their resilience had its limits. The journey from the arid, stable environment of an Egyptian tomb to the humid, often unpredictable climate of Victorian Britain was, in itself, a perilous ordeal. Mummies, frequently packed haphazardly into crates, endured weeks or months at sea, exposed to fluctuating temperatures, salt air, and jostling. They transitioned from thousands of years in a dry, dark, controlled environment to a journey that often broke their protective seals and introduced them to moisture and microbial life. This radical shift in environmental conditions initiated a chain reaction that would slowly, but inevitably, compromise their integrity. Once in Britain, their new homes were often little better. Early museums, while grand in ambition, lacked the scientific understanding and technology we have today. Climate control was non-existent. Mummies were stored in damp basements or exhibited in poorly ventilated galleries, exposed to the notorious British humidity and temperature swings. These conditions were a perfect breeding ground for dormant bacteria and fungi. What was once a meticulously preserved, sterile environment inside the bandages slowly began to awaken, triggering the very processes of decay that the ancient embalmers had so expertly fought against. The initial mummification process merely paused decomposition. It didn't eliminate all bacteria or prevent rehydration. Once exposed to moisture and warmer temperatures, dormant microorganisms could reactivate. As these bacteria began their work on the remaining organic matter, muscle tissue, skin, residual fluids, they produced gases. Methane, carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, the same gases generated by any decaying organic material. This biological activity, slow but relentless, was the true silent enemy, working from within the centuries-old shell. Imagine a tightly sealed container accumulating gas over days, weeks, or even months. Many mummies were encased in multiple layers of linen, sometimes sealed within inner and outer coffins, effectively creating an anaerobic chamber. As gases accumulated internally, pressure would build. This wasn't an instantaneous explosion like gunpowder, but a gradual, relentless force. Eventually, the weakest point would give way. Bandages might tear with a sudden ripping sound, or a wooden coffin might crack, releasing the pent-up gases. To a Victorian observer, unaware of the subtle biological forces at play, such an event could easily be described with dramatic hyperbole, a bursting or an explosion. Beyond internal gas pressure, other factors contributed to the dramatic deterioration. Insect infestations were rampant in poorly maintained museum collections. Carpet beetles, moths, and other destructive pests could devour bandages and even desiccated flesh, further weakening the mummy's structural integrity. Moreover, millennia of desiccation made the mummies incredibly brittle. Rough handling during unwrapping or exhibition, accidental drops, or even the vibrations of a busy museum could cause limbs to snap, skulls to crack, and fragile tissues to disintegrate, adding to the spectacle of destruction. So, did thousands of mummies spontaneously explode in British museums? Not in the dramatic Hollywood sense. The truth is far more nuanced, a fascinating confluence of historical context, scientific understanding, and human perception. What was described as an explosion was likely a combination of gas-induced ruptures, severe insect damage, the sheer fragility of ancient remains, and the sensationalism of the era. These incidents were dramatic enough to fuel legends, transforming natural decay and poor preservation into terrifying, inexplicable events. Today, our understanding of conservation ensures such dramatic incidents are largely a relic of the past, allowing these ancient souls to rest in more dignified, stable environments. The tale of exploding mummies serves as a powerful reminder of how history can be warped by wonder, fear, and a lack of scientific understanding. The drama surrounding these ancient bodies in Victorian Britain highlights not just the challenges of preservation, but also our evolving relationship with the past. From revered pharaohs to objects of morbid curiosity, and finally to subjects of scientific study and respectful conservation. The journey of a mummy is as complex and layered as the bandages that once held them together. Their explosions, while never truly literal, were a dramatic cry for better care, reminding us that even in death, these ancient beings continue to hold secrets and demand our utmost respect.